Hey friends, just as promised, I am recording this video today to join the campaign to expose Bill Gates. But I'll be doing this in a bit of an unconventional way because whereas a lot of people are scrutinizing Bill Gates, rightly so, and looking at his work and looking at his activism, for the last 10 years, I have been preoccupied with looking at the works and the words of his wife, Melinda Gates, who also is very much a partner in the work. Now, Melinda Gates came to my attention back in 2012, and it was quite a shock for me because I was watching the news and I saw Melinda Gates talking about this massive project she was doing in Africa. So, I kind of listened closer to know exactly what it was. And then she starts to talk about this $5 billion she was trying to raise and campaign for, which was going to be used specifically for family planning and contraceptive drugs and devices in the 69 poorest countries in the world, of which, of course, most of the African countries belong in that category. So this really startled me and really confused me because the question I was asking myself at the time, 2012, I knew about the Gates and I kind of admired them as these people who did like great work and they were doing amazing things in Africa. So I came to this from a really innocent perspective. I was following the track, following what she was doing. Then I came across her execution plan. Now, she wasn't only planning to kind of encourage people like, do family planning, space your children. No, that was not what Melinda Gates was doing. Melinda Gates came hand in hand with Pfizer and some other stakeholders. These wealthy Western organizations, they came into Africa, but not only were they telling us to control our population, they came with their own drugs and devices. So Melinda Gates came in with Pfizer, who had at the time come up with this new format or new delivery system of a well-known dangerous contraception, the Depo-Provera, which a lot of people have complained about in the West, which in some cases, like in the United States, you would see FDA warning, black box warning within, with the contraception. But then they came in with this thing, they were calling it the Cyanopress, to show you, here is a picture of the Cyanopress, to show you that they were targeting Africans. Every time that I saw the Cyanopress, it was in the hands of a black woman. Every single time. So the Cyanopress, which contained within it the Depo-Provera, which has already had all kinds of problems in Western countries, which even at the time, when I looked at the website, here is a screenshot at the time of the website from Pfizer when they did the press release about this Cyanopress that they were releasing with the Gates Foundation. They have it clearly written that this device or this drug, the Cyanopress, is not approved and it's not available within the United States or for the United States. So something that wasn't good enough for the United States, that was good enough for them to bring to Africa. Now take a look at this map of where the Gates Foundation and like-minded organizations like FP 2020, which was actually co-founded by the Gates Foundation. This is the map that they released back in 2012 of the 69 countries where they were going to be carrying out their extensive population control project. You see these places marked out in blue? You see how they've marked out most of African countries? This is what I call philanthropic racism. This is the acceptable racism of the 21st century. But leave population control and family planning to one side. I want to talk about abortion. It was back in 2014 that the Gates Foundation came out and publicly stated that they would no longer be funding abortion. A lot of people clapped for them. A lot of people praised them, and there were all these things that people were embracing them and saying how amazing. But then, again, you peel back the layers. Gates Foundation is in bed, yes, in bed with some of the worst and most notorious abortion organizations in the world, and they continue to be their greatest funders or their highest funders. Take, for example, Marie Stopes International, an organization that is aborting more than 3 million babies a year. By their own records, they are aborting about more than 3 million babies a year. This is a British organization. It is a British organization, yes, but the Gates Foundation were still somehow able to collaborate with them. The Gates Foundation gives them more money than almost anybody else, maybe except the British government, but the Gates Foundation gives them a large chunk of their yearly budget. Marie Stopes then takes that money, goes into African countries, and they are performing abortions, illegal abortions at that, in several countries. Why do I know, or how do I know? Because I have followed the work of Marie Stopes International as well, and on several occasions they have been accused of illegal abortions, and yet the Gates Foundation stands with them. But it's not just that. It's not just about the Gates having their millions and millions of dollars end up aborting illegally babies across different African countries. It's also something more sinister that I found out that was happening a couple of months ago. It's about this organization called Genuity. Genuity is an American organization which is little known. The first time I heard about Genuity, I never knew about them. I never heard about them. But then the reason why I took notice of Genuity was because of this particular clinical trial they were doing in Burkina Faso, which is a small West African country. Genuity, this American research organization, was doing a second trimester medical abortion experiment in Burkina Faso, where abortion is not even legal. But what does this have to do with Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation? So when I started investigating Genuity, I went to their website and I opened their page on their donors. Now, look at what their donor list is like. The very first donor listed by Genuity is the Gates Foundation. So again, the Gates Foundation money not only goes to killing of unborn babies in Africa, but it's also going to the experimentation on African women and the illegal experimentation on African women and second trimester abortions being done in the name of medical research. This is the Gates Foundation. Let me talk a bit about vaccinations. I know that a lot of good people have done great work to expose the Gates Foundation and their involvement with some downright sinister vaccination projects in the developing world. But one particular one struck a chord in me, and I do want to talk about that because it had to do with population control. Back in 2013, in fact, between 2013 and 2015, the World Health Organization was doing this huge vaccine project, anti-tetanus vaccination project, that was targeting particularly young girls and women of reproductive age in Kenya. Some Catholic doctors then intercepted some vials or some bottles of this vaccine and they sent it off to a lab. Now the result came back and they found out that this vaccine was laced with HCG, which in fact, depending on how and at the time it's given, it could be abortive agent. So in other words, the World Health Organization was accused by these Catholic doctors and the Catholic Bishops' Conference by extension of sterilizing and doing population control in their country. But then this was swept under the table or swept under the carpet. What does it have to do with the Gates Foundation? Because I know I'm talking about a World Health Organization program. But then it's not a secret that the Gates Foundation is, in fact, the highest non-governmental donor of the World Health Organization. They are funding a lot of the projects that the World Health Organization wants to do. So the World Health Organization brings out their wish list. The Gates Foundation will just rush in and then fund it through their various funding streams. These are some of the things that had come to my attention, and we keep peeling back the layers. Either you see some research the Gates Foundation has been involved with to show that something is dangerous for Africa, and they still come into Africa and they get to do whatever it is that they want to do. They go into African leaders' offices, they go into our institutions, they are infiltrating every part of the African continent. Now, I want to share with you this clip that I came across a while back. This was a clip from 60 Minutes that was aired, I think, about 9 years ago. So it's a long time ago, and it was probably right at the beginning of when Melinda Gates started her huge population control project. And honestly, every time that I watch this clip, I always tear up. It's a clip from 60 Minutes, as I said, but it's Scott Pelley. I think that's his name. That's the show host, the CBS show host of the show with Melinda Gates. They were in some part of the developing world, and they are having this discussion.
One of these meetings yesterday, and I remember that a lady told you that she had had 8 children and 4 of them had died in childbirth or shortly thereafter. But if all of them had survived, she'd have 8 children. And what the developing world does not need is more children.
And I think that was the biggest aha to Bill and me when we got into this work, is we asked ourselves, of course, the same hard-nosed question you'd ask, which is, if you get into this work and you start to save these children, will women just keep overpopulating the world? And thank goodness the converse is absolutely true. So they don't do that, because women say to themselves they want 2 children to survive into adulthood. If she knows that 2 will survive into adulthood, she will naturally bring down her population. And so as soon as she starts to see that getting them vaccinated or keeping them alive during the birth, she won't have as many children. That's what we just heard from this group as well, that the older women had had more children, hoping more would survive, but the younger women are starting to plan for smaller families because they know they'll live.
They all said they wanted 3.
Yeah. Which is fantastic.
Not
That's what you want. Yeah.
And so if you understand that there's a high likelihood that your child is going to survive, you believe they'll have fewer.
Absolutely, and we're seeing that play out in all the population numbers across the globe. In fact, the population rates are coming down faster than had been predicted. Aha to Bill and me when we got into this work, is we asked ourselves, of course, the same hard-nosed question you'd ask, which is, if you get into this work and you start to save these children, will women just keep overpopulating the world?